It's done. It's over. It's finished. Arsenal's hopes of signing Houssem Aouar are done. Apparently, we should stress this. Apparently, they're done. Apparently, the hopes of Arsenal of signing Houssem Aouar are finished, are done. They're over. The reports that are emerging from France, from L'Equipe and from RMC Sport, is that Lyon have cancelled all negotiations with teams negotiating for specifically Houssem Aouar and Memphis Depay. It's really difficult to talk about this because you don't want to put yourself on a pedestal and say that I don't think that's true, because there's definitely truth in terms of, I'm sure that Lyon have briefed these media outlets and told them that the negotiations are off. But this whole thing has stunk of just, alas, trying to panic teams into spending more money on their players. And I'm very sure that Alas would still would happily sell for the 50 million euro price that he wants for Houssem Aouar, and for the larger fee that Barcelona would pay for Memphis Depay. But I just get that feeling. I just get a bit of a feeling that this isn't over yet. I'm not quite sure. I'm not going to sit here and go, oh my God, what has the board done yet? On Tuesday evening, or Monday evening maybe, depending on how early it closes. I think it's still 10, or might be earlier than that. Whatever happens is that we will have a debrief of the transfer window and do a show on that as soon as it closes, and of course the next day as well on the podcast, and talk about it. So I'm not going to lose my mind yet. I'm certainly not going to lose my mind at all about this as of yet, because there is still time in the window. There is still days left. So yeah. Seb says, get your helmet ready, Tom. Bombardment is incoming. I mean, the thing about this is that the same briefing was given about Lacazette. We were told by Olas that Lacazette would not be leaving, that discussions were over. And for that, I mean, when we saw Lacazette join Arsenal, it kind of discredited Lyon a little bit. And it kind of turned us around to think that, maybe it doesn't actually matter if a club turns around and says the player's not coming. And I can completely understand that what the club's position is. I can completely understand that at the end of the day, the club needs to get as much money for their players as possible. If they don't get that money, they want to keep them. But you can't turn around with days left of the window and say they're not going anywhere, because if he has a price and Arsenal pay that price, he could still come in. I feel like I'm trying to talk myself into this still being okay. When the reality is that if Arsenal end up with no one, it's going to be a big problem. And then eyes will certainly turn towards Edu and the owners. Now, Arteta came out yesterday. And basically said that he had got the full backing from the board, which was interesting. And he got full backing from the owners about what they wanted to do in the market. Now, at the end of the day, I can imagine where this is going to go. You're going to see Arteta get battered by a lot of people when this is nothing to do with Arteta. This is nothing to do with Arteta. This is on Edu. This is on Josh. This is on the people. This is on Vinay. This is on the people that get that stuff done. Whilst Arteta and Edu are now, obviously Arteta now being the manager, is more ingrained with that side of things, has more say, has a little bit more control, and his input goes in a little bit more. It is ultimately on our negotiators, as in Edu, as in Vinay and the people that are at the club and Husfami, to get the deals done. Now, they can only do what they can do with the money that they've been given, the money that they've been told is available. And if we've been told that 40 million euros is what we've got to spend, and we've gone in with a bid of 40 million euros and they've rejected it, then, I mean, what more do you want to say? The argument will be that why don't we have more money? I would look at what's going on elsewhere. I would look at Spurs and say Spurs have spent, I think, around 80-something million this window. Now, I need to do a quick check on how much Spurs have sold this summer. Spurs transfer markets. And hopefully it should tell me how their transfers have been this season. But I was doing some research for an article earlier, and they'd spent about 80-something million quid, which, when you consider that they've got the COVID situation that we've got, that they've got the stadium situation that we've got. So they sold Kyle Walker-Peters for 30 million. So they've sold that. That's it. And then they've spent 90 odd million euros in total. So you're looking at a net spend of around 70 million there from what's on Transfermarkt. That's what you've got there. Which, when you think about the fact that they've got COVID, when you've got to think about that they've got the stadium, how are they spending that much money? And how are we not spending more money? I would question that. 100% would question that. I know we have spent money this window. We've spent on Gabriel. We've spent the money on Willian, even though it's a free transfer, but they're signing on fees, etc. We've got Danny Ceballos' loan fee that's obviously been spent. There's the Pepe money that's obviously had to come out this summer as well, and any other deals that were done in installments last summer as well. And at the same time, you still got to think, where surely we have some, surely there's some money somewhere. And there will be huge criticism of the owners for sure, because in this window and obviously we're speaking about this still in hypotheticals, if Arsenal don't end up making any signings this summer window, any more signings, I should say, then there will be big questions put ahead of the owners, big questions to say, why have you not invested? Why have you not, when we talk about being a self-sustaining model and to try and comply with FFP rules, but we know that FFP this summer has been, in quote marks, relaxed. We're not entirely sure what relaxed means or how relaxed that is, but I'm not quite sure as to why they wouldn't have tried to help. I tried to say yesterday on yesterday's show that there is a reluctance maybe to invest because they've seen the money that they apparently helped to purchase Pepe, and that didn't go too well. Anyway, I feel like I've gone for 7 minutes now and not really read too many of your comments. So let's get some of your comments. In summary of kind of that monologue there, from the looks of things, Aouar isn't happening. That's kind of the information that's going on there, because of Lyon have briefed the French outlets to say it's not happening. Whether this is a final play for Alas to try and get Arsenal to stump up the final cash that he wants for them, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. There's still time left on the window. And we're just going to have to wait and see what happens. Arsenal want to make signings. That's never been in doubt. It's just their reluctance to actually put the right amount of money down, I think, is obviously going to come into question a lot, which is going to be great for the people that love the negativity around the club, for sure. But in terms of actually what we want and for the best for Arsenal, it's a massive shame that Arsenal can't get these deals sort of done. So let's get some more of your comments in the chat. Corey says, I honestly think Aouar wouldn't change where we finish in the league. What can he do that Ceballos can't? Partey should be prioritised. Is he the only gettable midfielder that can transform our side? I think that Aouar would certainly help with us going towards top four. He's a very, very good midfielder. I get your point. I think that the Partey side of things is a case of when you come up against the Liverpools, the Man Uniteds, the Chelseas, the Spurs, the Manchester Cities, Partey is the guy that's going to really help you combat those games a lot better. Whereas Aouar might not necessarily be able to have too much of an impact because he's not going to get the ball as much. Whereas Partey can enable us to be sort of a better team that can escape those presses that those opposition teams have. And I think that I think it's a big shame. I think if Arsenal don't get Aouar, it means that the games in which we struggle to create, the games in which we lack a bit of penetration through the middle, is that we're going to struggle in those games again. The thing, I get the comparison you make, Corey, with Ceballos, but the thing about Ceballos is that he kind of transitioned now into this sort of number 6/8 sort of player next to Xhaka. I still feel that he could play that. I was kind of excited to see if Aouar was going to come in, to see a partnership between Xhaka, Aouar and Ceballos, and see that kind of creativity bleed throughout that central part of the midfield. When I do a little bit of the show a little bit later on today, looking ahead to the Liverpool game, I'm just a sneak peek of that. I'm kind of hoping that we play a back four with a midfield three. I'm kind of hoping that happens. That's the kind of situation that I want to see. I want to see us go at Sheffield United. They've not scored a goal all season. They're defensively quite weak this season compared to last year. And so I think that when you look at what we could do, I hope we do go for that. But I'm not sure whether Aouar is to say that he wouldn't help us get into top four. I think that's I don't necessarily entirely agree with that. I think he definitely would have helped us get into a better position in the league. But I take your point, Corey, 100%. Anonymous says, sorry, Tom, but this but is not negativity. I just had enough. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't see us above 8th again. Let's try and look at things objectively. Arsenal have improved their squad. If you look at obviously Aubameyang signing a new deal is really that's the best bit of business we could have done this summer, in my opinion, other than Partey, is getting Aubameyang to sign a new deal. Even if you sign Partey, if you'd have lost Aubameyang, that's a lot of goals that you've got to replace. So they're probably on an even keel. Gabriel was a really important signing. Getting him in to improve our defensive side of things, I think, is really important. Willian is going to give us depth. It's a better squad, but the problem is that whilst I think our squad has improved, the teams around us have improved a lot more. You look at what Chelsea have done. You look at Liverpool have strengthened again. Manchester City have brought in another centre-back in Ruben Diaz, which is only going to strengthen them. They didn't necessarily need to invest in that final third of the pitch, but they did with Ferran Torres. So they have invested in the areas that they kind of needed to. You look at Manchester United have brought in Donny van der Beek. They're going to be working hard to bring in a couple of players probably towards the end of the window that they still can. They're looking to bring in Ousmane Dembele. Those talks are ongoing. And if they pull that off, then Arsenal could look really silly in the market and really kind of... I thought genuinely if Arsenal had a chance of getting at least one, maybe two of those players this window, as in Aouar and Partey, Arsenal could have really pressed to challenge sort of those teams at the top end of the table and really go for that top four spot solidly and push on to maybe a third place or even higher if you had those two. Because those two together, Aouar and Partey, I thought could really transform Arsenal's midfield. It genuinely would turn it into one of the best midfields in the league, I thought. So it's a shame that can't happen. And I think that Arsenal have definitely got to be criticised quite rightly for not getting that done. If there was money available and they've kind of penny pinched around with that, then definitely there needs to be some criticism and some questioning and some, what's the word I'm looking for, sort of investigation into why this didn't happen. Because I think not backing Arteta now is silly. Like, you've got a manager that's improved nearly every single player that he's got under his disposal since he came in. He's won us a trophy in his first 6 months. Not backing a manager that does that in such a short space of time, not giving him the tools to build on what he's already got. As Jamie Carragher, so I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of some of the stuff that he says, but some of the stuff he says is bang on. And one of the things that he said was bang on in the Liverpool game was that Arteta seems to have got the most of what he can from this group of players. And I'm pretty sure that's pretty much what anyone could get out of this current group of players. I'm not sure you'd see a Mourinho and Ancelotti and Allegri, whoever. I'm not sure you'd see a Guardiola come into this Arsenal team and get more from this squad. I don't think that's actually possible. You're getting as much as you can from this squad by getting them back into Europe, obviously, through the Europa League and winning a trophy. I don't see what more he could have really done with this squad beyond what it already is. So we needed to add those reinforcements to give Arteta that higher ceiling. We're going to see players like Saka, Martinelli hopefully coming back in, and Nketiah, pray to God he improves. Tierney, again, we've got a lot of young players in this squad that can still improve and that ceiling can continue to rise. But the problem is that we needed to add significant quality in the midfield specifically to really help us challenge further up the pitch. 100%. If the midfield was not focused on, then we have failed this window. Like, it's a good window in terms of the players that we've got in terms of Gabriel, in terms of Willian and Ceballos. It's good to get those guys in. Like, it's not a bad thing to sign those players whatsoever. But the problem is to not improve the midfield is such a big problem. Like, it's such a big problem because it's such a key area of the pitch where we are failing and we are significantly outnumbered in terms of quality, that to not get that sorted sooner is really frustrating. And it's really difficult to not get so frustrated with the people above them and to not go at them. I mean, I'm never in line to abuse people, ever. I think you're an absolute moron if you're going to go around and try and slag people off at the club that you're meant to be loving. But at the end of the day, there's a right and a wrong way to do things. And you can be very, very critical of the way that things are going on, for sure, if you're doing it in the right way. And the thing is that Arsenal's need of that midfield was so dire that at the moment, Lucas Torreira is going to be heading off to Atletico Madrid. So we're technically weaker than what we were because we've lost Lucas Torreira and we've not replaced him. At the end of the day, there are still days left at the window. Like, I'm not going to have a final judgment on this. I'm not going to lose my mind yet until the end of the window. If Arsenal may go out and sign someone that hasn't even been talked about yet and could transform the midfield, I highly doubt it. Aouar could still happen. The reason for the headline of the thumbnail is because that's what we're being told right now, is that they will stay, they will not be going anywhere. So it is incredibly frustrating. It is really, really frustrating to see this news come out now. And I think that maybe the backlash from the fan base that we may see publicly could push Arsenal into a position where they know they'll need to do something. Issei says, did you hear about Saliba's mum? Very sad, Tom. Yes, I did. If that story is true, I've not actually seen it reported by sort of a big outlet, other than it being questioned in Arteta's press conference, which I thought was so tasteless. And obviously thoughts go out to Saliba and his family and dealing with that tough news. But I did see that, yeah. Glenn Cook says deadline day madness is what we're going to expect. I mean, Gooners are going to be absolutely glued to their screens across deadline day. Arsenal play tomorrow, and that means that we're unlikely to see too much happen on Sunday, because on game day things are very, very slow, and that could mean that there is a big dash, which, when you think about the situation that we've got right now with COVID, trying to get players around doing medical stuff like that is tricky. It's tricky normally, but in these circumstances it's even slower. So I don't know what the club are going to do. They have to sign someone. I really didn't like the way the press conference went in terms of asking Arteta questions about what happens if we don't sign anyone. I would have liked maybe Arteta to have been a bit more forward-thinking and go, we're looking to sign someone. Like, we want to sign someone. We want to improve the team. He didn't say that, unfortunately. And that's the way that was. But yeah, it is frustrating. It is frustrating at this time. I'm just going to plug my laptop in. It is frustrating. I get that. And I know that Arsenal fans are going to be very angry and very frustrated and very, very acrimonious towards the management and towards the club, because you want to see new players come in. I want to see new players come in. I want to see us spend a lot of money and get us the best team that we possibly can. But yeah, this is going to be some really, really tough sort of news to take for Arsenal fans if no one is brought in by the deadline, considering what other teams have done around us this summer. Yeah, I'm not really too much sure what more there is to say. I'm just going to sort of keep refreshing our. We're just going to keep refreshing our. Okay, it is a good bit of positivity. It is a good bit of our good friend Chris. Here we go. This is what I wanted to highlight. Let me get up on the screen for you. Our good friend Chris, who of course came on the show the other day, AFC Freddy 8, Chris Carpenter. Make sure you go check him out over on ABW. Oh, Twitter. When will you ever learn? Of course, Lyon have announced both Aouar and Depay are staying. They said they would do that a week ago. As long as the window is open, all clubs' players are transferable. Simple facts. Relax. 48 hours to go. So there you go. There's our good friend Chris helping us in our time of need. So hopefully, there you go. Take the advice of Chris, guys, and yeah, just try and remain less reactionary as Jim Bob here. It's probably the way to go. The club's finished. It's done. Just honestly, if you think the club's done, just go home. Just stop. Just stop supporting this stuff. If you're that sad, if you're that angry and at that done in about the situation, what are you doing? What are you doing? Just get behind the club at the end of the day. I'm always going to maintain that. I'm an Arsenal fan and I love the club, and whatever the club does, you're here for the rough and you're here for the smooth, and you have to take both of them with both hands and you deal with it. You can get annoyed, you can get frustrated, but to say the club's done, Oh no. And I know that a lot of you get frustrated with my optimism, and I know I'm an optimistic person, and that comes down to purely just trying to see the positive side of things. But Millie says on Tuesday, what will be the excuse? And honestly, I don't know. I don't know what the excuse is going to be from the club on Tuesday if we've not signed anyone. If we havenent signed anyone by the end of the window, we'll be certainly on the show to talk about that and talk about the disappointment and to criticise the just the poor lack of direction and the whatever's gone on. Because at the end of the day, is that even if, say, Arsenal weren't able to get Aouar, they should have had contingencies. They should have had someone in sort of as a backup to get to strengthen us of similar quality that was available for less. So, I mean, Arsenal should have gone out and got Dominic Szoboszlai towards the end of the window. I mean, that would have been perfect. But at the end of the day, it's not going to happen, is it? So it's just trying to get through these last 2 days, guys. Matt Gray says, your optimism is needed now, Tom. If not, I'd be crying. Joseph says, Tom is optimistic to reduce his depression caused by Arsenal. It's not that. I don't have depression yet. So, yeah, but it's just a case of actually just putting out shows that are positive, for like just trying to be positive about things, which frustrates people. And if you don't enjoy my positive spin on things sometimes, then there are plenty of negative places that you can go and to enjoy those views. So please do. But I hope that you do stick around, because the whole thing is that this is all about opinions, and I'm happy to hear both sides of the argument as long as they're always respectful. We maintain that. Chris P says, getting ready for the Partey Aouar. I think you might be waiting a little bit longer than you thought there, Chris. Bradley Costello says, I think we need to boycott the club. The only way to make Kroenke see is affecting his pocket. We've been outplayed in midfield by West Ham, and the owner doesn't even see it. I get what you're saying, Brad. I don't think the thing is, I think you're never going to see a Stan Kroenke ever coming in and changing things at Arsenal. Arsenal are going to continue, whilst he is of ownership, a self-sustaining club. You're never going to see that. You're never going to see it. It's just not going to happen. And I'm telling you now that it doesn't matter how many protests you do. It doesn't matter how many boycotts you do. It doesn't matter. Like, things will carry on the same until someone buys him out, and they will have to spend an insane amount of money to make him do that. And I just can't see that happening. It's really frustrating. And you know, I mean, when I'm frustrated, you know that there's that things are bad. But yeah, as I said, there's 48 hours to go. There's more than 48 hours to go. So let's just try and wait and see what happens. I wanted to come on and jump on and talk about the news with you guys, because this is the news and we cover it every single time it breaks. And yeah, it's. Omar says, I wish I could have Tom's positivity right now. I mean, this is the best positivity you're going to get from me. We've just been told that we're not signing Aouar, and I'm just trying to have an open mind as much as possible without losing it. It might not get the views, but I don't care, because I'd rather stay true to myself, to be honest. Anonymous says, Atletico Madrid is playing now against Mr. Ibening, our good friend Unai, and Partey is not on the squad. Partey, it's coming. No, I'm pretty sure Partey started, mate. So, as far as I was aware, that Partey started the game. So, I'm just going to check it. Yes, he did. He definitely started, because I wrote a blooming article. But you did make me doubt myself for a second. So Partey was certainly. Chris says, let's just sign Thiago for Liverpool. Yeah, that's probably the way we could do it. Just go out and sign Thiago. It's just signed for them. Freddie says, I'm signing off until the window is closed. See you then, Todd. See you in a bit, Freddie. I don't blame you, mate. I don't blame you at all whatsoever. Manouche says Partey's playing. Yeah, Partey started. We all know that. Jim White, breaking news. Arsenal have signed no one. No one again. Dunk No says, the one time we get a good manager and the chance we get world-class players and the board bottles it. Real Prince says, I think we might need the owner to actually see an Arsenal game for him to see the problems. He's been at them, mate. He's been at the Arsenal games. It doesn't change anything. It just doesn't change anything. Be excited, remember? That's what we got. Be excited. So Chris says, Tom, if no Aouar and no Partey, who would be an acceptable centre midfield target? I mean, it depends what you want from a centre midfielder, doesn't it, Chris? Because if you want a Partey and you want a 6/8, you want a guy that can beat the press. There's not too many of those out there, unfortunately. Off the top of my head, I genuinely can't name a single player that's on the same level as Partey that can do it. And yeah, I can't think of anyone that is like. What frustrates me is I've just seen Mark Rocker go to Bayern Munich for 50 million euros, and that's like if you're not gonna get Partey, Rocker is a really good alternative that's a lot cheaper, and it doesn't actually stop you from signing a Partey next season because then you've got a Xhaka, you've got Rocker, and you've got Partey, and you might turn around and say that Xhaka could be moved on. And Samare, Bradley says, Samare is good. I understand that, but he's not as good as Partey at breaking the press. He's good as a defensive midfielder, but he's not good at doing what Partey does. He does it in certain games, and we covered it in the tactical breakdown. I'm not saying that he can't do it at all. I'm saying in terms of the level that he is at, it's just nowhere close to Partey, and Partey would have changed things for us this season. Navin Dare says, what do you think about Partey happening? I can't see it, mate. I can't see it happening because the problem is with the Partey situation is that I feel like with Aouar, Lyon were willing to accept 50 million euros with with like being differences in the payments. But Partey, 45 million pounds, 50 million euros has to be all paid at once, which I just don't know from the what you get is from the feeling throughout Arsenal, and the feeling that's been briefed amongst the media is that's Arsenal aren't capable of doing that without selling players. And that's another thing, is that we're 48 hours-ish away from the window, and Torreira's going on loan with no obligation at all to be bought. It's an option that doesn't have to be taken up, which I doubt will be taken up at this point. Because if you look at their midfield, if they're not going to sell Partey, you've got Partey and you've got Saul in the midfield. And Torreira doesn't get into that. He gives them depth, and he probably gives them game time in terms, and he could, if they wanted to switch to a 4-3-3, he could give them that. And apparently they've got to move on Hector Herrera and Thomas Lemar. You know what's really funny is that you could really go out and you could see Hector Herrera coming to Arsenal at this point, because Arsenal are going to be so desperate to get a midfielder. I don't want that to happen, but you can see it, couldn't you? It'd be comedic. It'd be so comedic if Edu to turn around and be like, right, well, they need to get rid of Hector Herrera. And like, he's a decent player, Herrera. And if you watch the show that we did on yesterday with me and Aouar Romeo, we talked about Hector Herrera a bit, and he was saying that he's a good player, but the thing is that he's just not the level that Arsenal needs. And he's nowhere near the quality that Arsenal need. He's good, but he's not great. And there's a reason why Atletico want to move him on. So I'm not really interested in that. Rodney says Rocker is at Bayern. Yeah, I know. I did an article on it earlier, and it's insane that they've managed to get that deal done so cheap, so cheaply. It's such a good signing. Where he'll play, I'm not sure, because you've got Kimmich and Goretzka, and I'm not sure he's going to get into that team, but it's still a really, really good signing. We missed out on Sangara, of course, went to PSV. Aslan says, why did we sell Torreira and weaken our midfield even more if we were not going to sign a midfielder? And I think that's a big thing that Arsenal made a mistake here, is that I know we had to sell before we bought, but the thing is Torreira's not being sold. He's being loaned out with no obligation to buy. I don't know how much the loan fee is. I can't imagine it's loads. And I can't imagine it's loads at all. So it's just, yeah, it's not going to happen, is it? It's just not going to happen. If Arsenal sign no one between now and the end of this window, then we will have to just jump on here and talk about the issues that we've got within the recruitment structure. Again, I'm not putting this blame on Arteta. I saw a stupid comment earlier on the video saying Arteta lied to the fan base, saying that he had the backing of the board. I don't think that is a lie. I think the board have got his back, are backing him in terms of like what he wants to do, in terms of his philosophy, what he wants to do with the team. But they can, he will turn around and say, and the club will turn around and say that they can only back him with the financial capacity that is available to them. Now, that's not on Arteta. That's on the board not investing and not giving Arteta the money. He says he feels the support of it. I mean, for instance, right? A lot of people want a manager that will question the board. A lot of people want someone that is going to question what the board does. Well, I'll give you some advice. Go over and look at what PSG has happened to them right now. So Tuchel comes out after the game the other day and turns around and says that he feels that PSG cannot have the same targets that they had last season because it's not realistic, because the teams that are around them, the likes of Liverpool, Manchester City, Inter Milan, he referenced, these teams have all gone out and signed players. Liverpool have invested in Thiago and Jota. Manchester City have gone and got Ruben Diaz and Ferran Torres. Inter Milan have gone out and got several players. And I mean, the player that comes to mind for them is obviously Hakimi, who is a really solid signing for them from Real Madrid, who was, of course, on loan at Borussia Dortmund. And they should have kept him, Real Madrid. They really should have kept him. But going off on a tangent, Leonardo, who's the sporting director at PSG, has come out and publicly, effectively disgraced Tuchel and turned around and said that if you're not, if you've got a problem with how we do things, then you can go. And I'm like, managers don't have the power. Like, now a manager has more power than a head coach. Arteta cannot come out in a press conference and say, blah, 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 blah. They're not doing this. They're not doing that. Every single club that Jose Mourinho has gone to and said stuff like that, he's left a failure. He's left because he's been disgraced and he's put the club in a worse position than when he took over. Besides Chelsea, of course, being the first example. But he took over Real Madrid and he couldn't win. He couldn't win them the Champions League, and he put them in a worse place than when he joined. And it was a horrific place that he put them in. And he turned what was a Galactico side into having players that it's just a really frustrating period at Real Madrid when you were looking at it. He got them La Liga, but he couldn't get them the Champions League. And then, like, what he did at Inter Milan is that you saw the decline of Inter Milan after he won the Champions League, because like he milked it for everything that he got. He got them that Champions League, and then I mean, it just collapsed. And Inter are still recovering from that Champions League sort of fallout in that period. And I'm not saying that he's a bad manager, because he's not, because he's got great success and he's won a lot of trophies. But he's not the type of manager that you are going to get. My point is that Jose Mourinho is not going to come into this club, were he, say hypothetically, Jose Mourinho comes into the club, he questions the board, he gets sacked. Then we're back at square one again. Like, you will not see an Arsenal coach question the board because they'll be gone. I don't know what you want from the manager. If you want the manager to question the board, then you're dooming them. You're just dooming them to fail, and you're sentencing them to get sacked, because that's what will happen. Is that a head coach at Arsenal, a manager at Arsenal, is not allowed to question. I mean, I was talking to Aouar yesterday on it, and he spoke about Arteta, and he spoke about the way he is in press conferences, and he has to speak the way he speaks in press conferences. Arsenal are exceptionally secretive of how they do things. They don't like to release too much information at all. He doesn't like press conferences. I think that's pretty clear from the way he is in press conferences. But you can't expect anyone to be a manager and question what's going on up top. If you're expecting that to happen, or if you want that to happen, then whoever you want to come in isn't going to last very long. You can't have a relationship between the head coach and the board that isn't in synergy, that isn't working, that is, if there is issues between that, then they go. That is how it works. You can't have a breakdown. And that's what we've seen at PSG, with Leonardo effectively saying, if there's a problem with Tuchel, then he can go. That's effectively what he said. So it doesn't matter how good you are, who you are, what you've won, or whatever you've spent and achieved. If you do not have a connect, if you do not behave, and if you do not act the way that the people who own the club want you to act, you'll be gone. So to want that from a manager, to come out and question the board, is beyond stupid. Like, it just makes no sense to want that at all. Zaid says, what a joke. If we sign no one before Monday, expect another 8th place finish. Hybrid Emirates says, about time Kroenke uses his own money to get the necessary transfers done. The guy hasn't spent a dime of his own money at the last 5 years. I'm not going to buy any more Arsenal merchandise. Kartik says, lol, how are they backing him in terms of his philosophy by not getting the players he wants? What I mean when I'm saying that how is he backing him, what they're doing is they're backing him and saying that you create the team how you like. You play the team how you like. You create the formation. You create your own system and philosophy. And we will back you by getting behind you on that, by giving you the manager's job. I'm not saying that they're backing him and giving him investment, because that hasn't happened. I get what you're saying, Kartik, but you've misunderstood what I was saying. Bradley says Arteta is going to fail. He's going to fail them. We won't get anyone next year because we won't have European football. Woody Wood says no point signing in new players anyway. Arteta puts them in the Carabao or Euro Trash League Cup B teams. I'm not sure what you mean about that. If you're talking about Pepe, I think that I don't know, because Pepe is not earned the right to be in the first team yet from his performances whatsoever. Jonathan says, Tom, I'm not going to lie, it would hurt if Chelsea signed Partey. Jonathan, I'm not going to lie, it would definitely hurt if Chelsea signed Partey, and I'm kind of preparing myself for that to happen, unfortunately. Omar says, so what's their work for the club? You have to tell the fans the truth. Don't come out and tell us you have been backed by the owner. Again, I think it's how you interpret those words. If you interpret them by saying that Arteta is saying that he's being backed financially, which is not what he said, he just said he was being backed, then you're going to be disappointed, because no manager that's coming into this club, whether it's Arteta, whether it's Emery, whether it's Wenger, whether it's whoever comes in after Arteta goes, which will happen one day, whoever comes in after him, if Kroenke is still here, there isn't going to be any investment. And you've got to get used to that. Like, you can moan and you can whinge, but it doesn't ultimately end in anything. It ends in you looking like a little bit silly. You're looking like I'm becoming a bit of a viral meme. But other than that, nothing's going to be achieved from it. You can boycott, you can protest, nothing changes. You have no power at the end of the day. Like, I don't buy into anything about fan pressure about Wenger's dismissal. I don't buy into that at all. I genuinely thought it was. I genuinely think it was the club's decision at that time to move Wenger on, or whatever discussions. We don't know. We might find out in the book. But I don't believe it was down to fan pressure at all, because there was a hell of a lot of people that still wanted him at the club. I didn't. I wanted him to move on. But I don't think it was down to fan pressure at all. I just don't believe in it in this state of mind, with how powerful people are and how powerful and how a lack of care in my opinion, Stan Kroenke has. I don't believe that we as fans have the power to do anything, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Yannick says, "There's no way you believe that." I do believe that. I don't think it at all. I genuinely don't. Rodney says, "Glenn Cook is playing with our hearts and he enjoys it." Who's that in response to Glenn? What did Glenn say? Glenn said, Olas wanted 60 million, brought it down, set a strict deadline, and then went against it. Madrid talks denied. PSG talks denied. Juve talks denied. You're telling me you trust this man? Brilliantly summed up, Glenn. Yeah, I know what you're saying. And I think that's why I highlighted what Chris said on his Twitter feed. You just can't trust Olas at all. He's just not trustworthy. Aslan says, we have a billionaire owner and he can't even invest 100 million to his club. FFS. Yes, it's frustrating. And I'm on your side, 100%. I'm on your side. It is frustrating. I'm not making excuses for Kroenke at all in this window whatsoever, because there was the ability to invest this summer and he's not done that. Joseph says, that's to be expected, Tom. Every manager should have the right to set up the team how they want. Exactly, they should. That is their expectation. But that doesn't happen, because if you look at what happened at Real Madrid with Rafa Benitez, effectively Florentino Perez was picking the team. He was telling him who you need to pick. He was telling him what players you need to play. He was telling him what players you can't play. So you think it's a given, but I can tell you for a second, it's definitely not. Rodney says, Christopher Fung, they have the profile too, but Saka still struggles to finish games, as well as ESR being too injury prone. In regards to the youngsters, it's great to have these youngsters that are coming through, but we needed more. We needed so much more, and we just didn't get it, and we aren't seemingly getting it. Zaid says, who reported Aouar dealers off? Might be another attempt. It's the French media, mate. It's L'Equipe and RMC Sport. So that's what we're saying, is that there are still 48 hours left of the window. We might all look very, very silly in 48 hours' time, and Aouar might be an Arsenal player. We don't know right now. I tell you what, though, Aouar's, Alas's Twitter account is going to get bombarded if Aouar doesn't end up signing for Arsenal. Here we go. Christopher Fung says, Tom, can we still win the Europa League if we don't bring in further reinvestments? Chris, I can't tell you if we're going to win the Europa League. If you look at the teams that are in the competition right now, yes, of course we can. If another team drops in from the Champions League that's better than us, then I'm going to change my answer. I have faith. I always do. I'm as optimistic as you possibly can be. But at the end of the day, if we don't sign anyone, there's going to be a lot of questions. A lot of questions, and quite rightly. I feel like I'm mumbling now. I feel like I'm waffling. I feel like I am actually waffling at this point. We've been going for nearly 40 minutes. I think, yeah, Tip 1 says faith in Arteta, but not in the board. And I think that is pretty much in 48 hours, if we haven't signed anyone, where a lot of people are going to be at. I really hope that people have of the sound mind to not blame Arteta for the market not being used. But this is down to Edu, and this is down to Vinay, and this is down to Josh, and it's down to Stan. If Arsenal don't sign anyone, that's who you're looking at. You're not looking at the coach for that. Like, you're not. If you are, then sort your life out. that's pretty much where it is. So let's have some trust the process in the chat. Come on, members. Let's throw those emojis in. Let's get some ironic laughter in here. You are stupid if you take this seriously. Just the Lyon owner trying to get Arsenal fans to have a meltdown to increase his sale. I wouldn't go as far as saying you're stupid, but I would say that I think that you have to be certainly, what's the word? Naive to believe everything that comes out of L'Equipe and that, because I am convinced. I'm probably saying something that's already known, but I'm convinced that Alas has what's the word? Links with the newspapers. I'm sure he does. You see him quoting L'Equipe all the time. I'm sure that he has some way of doing it, because they've reported the interest in Real Madrid. It was BS. They reported the interest in PSG. It was BS. They reported the interest from Juventus. And whilst I'm not sure if that was BS, I do think that there was interest there, but I don't think it was as heavy as Lyon and the French reports were suggesting at the time. So, yeah. Deepak says, why Arteta is not responsible? He clearly said that the owners fully back him in the window, and now this. And the thing is, Deepak, is that I don't know what you expect him to say. That's what my point is making. He's not going to come out and say the owners don't back me publicly. You can't. At the end of the day, if you're turning around and saying that Alas can't be trusted, some people, then you can't take everything that comes out of our club as gospel, because it isn't. It isn't. Arsenal is not some bastion of truth. What comes out of the club is not like, it's what comes out of Arsenal is not going to be 100% the truth. And things are going to be said to cover things up. Things are going to be said to appease things, and things are going to be said to make things look like they're rosy when in fact they're not. So yeah, if you're going to take it very personally and you're going to take everything word for word like gospel, I think that's a bit naive. Carol says, Tom, you look so fed up. You never know. We may have another gem at Arsenal, just like Saka, which we don't know about. See, Carol, this is why I love you on the show, because you're bringing in some positivity and you're making me feel a bit better about talking about this. So thank you for that. I appreciate that a lot. Can we have Aouar on loan, says Samir. I think you're struggling, mate. I think we're struggling. Chris said, I'd rather talk about tomorrow's match. Good point. You know what we're going to do is I'm going to jump off here, and in about an hour's time, about 5 o'clock, I'm going to be jumping back on to talk about the game tomorrow. So thank you, Chris, for refocusing my intentions. Maybe things would have changed in an hour's time, but yeah, it's frustrating. Try to stay calm for the next 48 hours. I promise you, you will not be having us pulling any punches on Tuesday when we talk about this on the podcast. If nothing happens, we're going to have people on, and people are going to say their piece, and people are going to say what they think about things, and they can go for gold on that. And we'll have debates and we'll have discussions about everything. Again, I would say that if you're blaming the manager for this, I don't know why, but you've got quite a good right to turn around to Edu and Vinay and the board and Stan and say, what the hell, and Hasfami, all the people behind the recruitment side of things, and say, what the hell are you doing? What are you doing? I'll see you soon, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you, as it always is. I'll see you again very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.